Hey, and welcome to Just Keep Scaling, the podcast all about failures that never happened and how they were avoided. I'm your host, Eric Stopper. On the show today, we have Jeff Meltzer at Applied Ergonomics. Since 1992, Jeff and his team have been consulting with businesses on how to create a more ergonomic workplace. They offer a wide variety of products and services. Go and check them out at appliedergonomics.com. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So we're excited to have you on the show, man. Let's just jump right in. Where does your story of near failure begin?
Well, my story of near failure actually begins with the story of just amazingly lucky success in the beginning. I had spent 5 years learning ergonomics with another company before starting out on my own. And I thought back in 1992 that every office furniture dealer in the country would catch on to ergonomics in a couple of years and that we would be the last ones at the table. So I decided that I needed to move up the food chain and go into the furniture business. I had never sold a panel, and I was lucky enough to win Boston Chicken's corporate headquarters move from the Chicago area to a new campus in Golden, Colorado. It was 1,100 workstations.
Man,
And that and a couple of other wins made me the largest dealer in the Midwest for one of the up and coming major panel system manufacturers out of my basement with one employee and then two. And after a couple of years, they decided that they wanted to move up the food chain also, and they didn't want to have any small dealers, which was all the profiles of who had gotten them to the party essentially.
Mhm.
And so they offered me the opportunity to sell my business to somebody, and I said no thank you. Basically, they were putting me out of business. So all of my customer base was with their product. And I had my dealership taken away from me.
No way.
That took me from, really good success to on the brink of failure. And I had to decide how I was going to go forward. It was really a harrowing time. I also had literally a 2-year-old, and I don't remember if my wife was pregnant with our next one yet, but that was scary. And because I realized that I didn't ever want to put myself in that position again. So I aligned myself with A, multiple companies, and B, smaller companies who appreciated my business.
Yeah.
And I was able to pick up and move on from that. But yeah, that was hairy.
So I want to go back to, right. So this is what, 1992, you started the business.
Yeah.
You had a 2-year-old at the time, and you told me before that.
No, my wife actually was pregnant that year. My daughter, who is now getting a PhD at NYU, was in the womb.
So what year was that when all this was going down?
Well, she was born, actually, no, she was born in May of 92, and I started the company in September.
Okay, so it's like 94?
No,
When-
90. Oh, when that happened?
Yeah,
It was
when the
95.
crushing. Okay, so it's 1995. Was it a phone call? Did the company that said that they were, removing you from the business,
Yeah.
they just called you up and said, hey, like this is what the deal is?
Yes, it was one of the vice presidents with whom I had been working.
And so this is like
When he was with another company, apologized to me and told me how badly he had felt.
oh man, you think it came from above him, or was that,
It
was he a
did,
part of that decision?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it came from above him.
So this guy that you had to work with, these many years, who had built your success, calls you one day and says, "Hey, it's all over." Do you think that he knew that it was going to sink you as bad as you thought it was going to in that moment?
Well, I think that he kind of hoped that I would merge my company into this other company. Um, But yeah, of course he knew.
Wow. So then you hang up this is 95, right? So you hang up the corded phone, right? And
Yes, it was definitely corded.
what was the first thought that you had as soon as you hung up that phone?
Oh my God. I mean, I lost all of my customer base, literally, because it's not like, I mean, I had a client here in Chicago that had 500 workstations. I had Boston Chicken that had 1,100 plus. We had then done another building. Plus we did the prototype for Einstein Brothers Bagels. They came out of that same group. So I had designed their corporate head, their initial offices. But yeah, all of my clients were so tied into that product that I couldn't just switch them.
Right.
So I literally lost all of my client base and had to start over.
So in starting over, right? This is the part where everybody has to face the wolf, right? They're caught, and you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you have to make it happen. So you hang up
Exactly.
the phone, you feel absolutely dreadfully terrible, right? The whole world comes crashing down. What was the first move that you made? Did you go and cry? Did you go and get blasted drunk? Did you go and hold your baby girl? Like, what? Talk to me about step one. And then how did you made it sound really simple, right? A and B. I found, people that appreciated my businesses, and I found smaller vendors. I want to know what shovel did you use to dig yourself out of this shitstorm that you found yourself in?
That's a good question. Absolutely, I cried.
It's a man to admit.
For sure, I cried. And then I just had to take time to think about what my options were.
Where'd you go? What'd you do?
I physically don't remember where I went to think, but I had been doing, I was a very early on practitioner of yoga and other things like that. And so I am sure that I meditated on it and just strategized. And it was all internal with myself.
So you didn't have, did you have mentors or business coaches that you could turn to?
Not really. I had taught myself this industry. It was really pretty remarkable.
And business in general, you had taught it. Do you have like an MBA or a business degree?
I went to Michigan and I was probably the only person in the history of University of Michigan. I was in the what was called the residential college, which was the small liberal arts college within the 40,000 student LS&A. And I mean, it was literally the home of SDS. We were very politically active and ahead of our times. I think I was probably the only person that ever majored in business through the residential college.
So you had some sort of business framework that you were able to apply to crawling out of this business.
Yeah.
Do you recall what that was? Is there like all the Harvard and Yale and all these colleges, they've got these like acronyms, or they've got matrices that they put together. They've got.
I didn't use it. No.
Nothing like that.
No.
Did you make a checklist? What
Yes.
ended up being the
Yes,
strategy?
I made a checklist of what my options were, who I could work with, who would actually fulfill the same kinds of things that I had gotten from that company. And there were at the time not very many. So it was a tough spot to be in, because the smaller companies had not caught up in quality and design. And so it took a long time for them to really come around to sufficiently for what I needed my level of business to be. But it happened.
So then you open up the yellow pages, right? And you start calling companies, right?
Oh, well, they were manufacturers who were represented at the merchandise mart.
Okay.
And we're really lucky to be in Chicago, because Chicago has had the merchandise mart for, I guess since the 40s. And so all of the major office or commercial furniture manufacturers are represented in that one building. It's during NeoCon, which is the annual trade show, it's 1 million square feet of showroom space. So, and it's 3 days, and you can walk and I basically run the entire way through. The show is not as big as it used to be. But yeah, so I have known almost all of the players in the industry as long as I've been in business.
So you from the moment that you cried and you went somewhere and you meditated, maybe did some yoga, which by the way has been a theme. Typically when these like massive devastating things happen to somebody's business, they'll go and they'll meditate, or they'll do a vinyasa flow to kind of get their head out of it. And so other than those things, what do you owe the success to, and how?
Perseverance, and I have just always been a little bit ahead, often to my detriment, ahead of the curve. And so trying to foresee what's coming next has been a huge benefit for me.
So tell everyone, all the listeners now, how do they do that, right? What is the advice that you would give them to be ahead of the curve and to be able to see what's next?
Read a lot. Stay current on the news, and then try to extrapolate, and then do research. So for instance, when COVID hit, and obviously now we're fast forwarding to just a year ago, but when COVID hit, I started doing a huge amount of research on what was it going to take to bring people back into the office. And so I learned about UVC. I learned about, because you have the ability to clean the air of viruses as well as the common cold. But UV light causes cancer. So I've been doing research for years, and for the last year, and now finally found a resource. There's a company out of Oregon that we're working with that has encapsulated UVC on the top of ceiling lights, so that you can clean the air in a room while people are physically there, so that the viruses or germs are being treated literally as you're sitting there, rather than trying to clear it through the HVAC at 2 hours later or in the night, because that doesn't really help you. Trying to do research on fabrics that can be new fabrics that can be cleaned well and yet look good, or even fabrics that have the ability to inherently kill germs, kill virus. So just trying to think ahead as to what was going to be needed, trying to re-space plan spaces, so office work specifically, so that you can both add collaborative spaces and give people some distancing, and give people the ability to have different spaces that they can think differently, because you've got people who either they have different needs themselves generally, or different types of work need different kinds of spaces. So just trying to think of what would be needed on the back end. And that's, I mean, frankly, what we thought was going to be important a year ago, as of yesterday, with the CDC saying no more masks needed inside if everybody is vaccinated. So everything is changing continually. But the whole idea of thinking as to what's next is, to me, the most important thing to be doing in business.
Everybody go and read, right? Find something to read, understand your industry. There is no shortage of information out there. There is, for those of you who are really super struggling right now, there's a study that shows that your threat level is directly tied to how much news and social media that you consume. And so you need to be really mindful about the types of media that you're consuming. Make sure that it is educational and that it serves the greater purpose of you being able to strategize. Don't go and consume a bunch of garbage. Go and consume the things that are going to take your business to the next level, and go and do some yoga. It sounds like you'd agree with that, right, Jeff?
100%.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You have a legacy business that has been able to thrive over the years and through the pandemic. Where do I send everybody to check out your team and your products?
Well, our website is appliedergonomics.com. And we're also actually in the process of building a new brand, which is, and that website is going to be, it's not yet live, but it's going to be ergofocus.net.
Ergofocus.net. Appliedergonomics.com and ergofocus.net. Go and check it out. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.